Yeah, so I can go first with that. There are a few. Sorry, I'm just gonna start again with that. I can go. Okay.
You're lucky you can put your dog outside because mine was almost killed by a coyote a few months ago, so I can no longer let my dog outside, which
Oh my
is really sad.
gosh.
Yeah, poor Tommy.
Hello, and welcome to the latest episode of the Dialogue Out Loud series. I'm Taylor Petrey, editor of Dialogue, a Journal of Mormon Thought, and this is a special episode because it's my last one officially as editor. I'm really excited about this and really sad at the same time, but I'm really glad about the people who are succeeding me, Margaret Olsen Hemming and Kline, and we're going to be interviewing each other today. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you so much, Taylor.
Happy to be here.
So why don't we go ahead and get started with you telling our audience who don't know you, may or may not know you, a little bit about who each of you are.
Yeah, so I'll start out. This is Margaret. I got into sort of the world of Mormon feminism officially about 15 years ago when Amy Hickman moved into my ward and she became the editor of Exponent 2. We were both living in Baltimore, and we decided when she became the editor and brought it back into print, I got on the staff and fell deeply in love with Exponent 2, and that became a big part of my life for the next about 12 years. So I eventually became the editor of Exponent 2. I served as the art editor for a while, which brought me into the world of Mormon art, which has become very important in my life. Around that time, I joined the Center for Latter-day Saint Arts when it started in the early 2010s, and that brought me, my work with Exponent 2 brought me into contact with Fatima Saleh, who we then started working on a book series of the Book of Mormon for the Least of These, which is a social justice exegesis of the Book of Mormon. And it was Fatima who first told me that I needed to go back to school and go to Duke Divinity. And I tried to follow her advice no matter what it is. So that's what I've been doing the last couple of years. I'm just about finished with a master's in theology from Duke.
Excellent. And Caroline, what about you?
Yeah. So, how did I start with all this? Well, I began, once again, Exponent 2 was a big part of my life, drawing me into the world of Mormon studies and particularly Mormon feminism. So I am currently a research assistant professor at Claremont Graduate University in the Department of Religion. And that is where I got my PhD a few years ago. I decided to attend CGU while I was very much invested in the world of blogging, feminist blogging. I helped to found the Exponent 2 blog. And when I heard that Claudia Bushman in 2008 was coming to Claremont Graduate University and that she would be teaching classes on Mormon women, I knew that this was my destiny. I quit my high school teaching job. I was a high school Latin teacher, and followed her to Claremont. And that is where I stayed for about the next 9 years, getting my PhD in religion and specifically in women's studies in religion. So that's basically my career path. But once again, like Margaret, Exponent 2 has certainly shaped where I am now, and it's a huge part of my history, my personal history.
So we're all going to be interviewing one another as a part of our conversation today, but I think that Exponent 2 is actually a really interesting place to start. And I'll note that these two organizations, Dialogue being founded in 1966 and Exponent 2 in 1974, that there are long and deep connections, sometimes rivalries between these two organizations a little bit. I'm curious to sort of get both of your experiences. Number one, sort of coming through that world into dialogue and what you see as the history, what you see as the relationship. And also just to note that Margaret, you're the first person to be the editor of both of these very long-standing journals in the Mormon studies space here. Caroline, you obviously have deep roots with Exponent 2 as starting the blog and a long history with that too. So what do you all think about like the relationship between Exponent 2 and Dialogue, and how did that sort of bring you here?
That's a great question. The relationship between the two. Well, let me speak personally. For me, they were bound together in my mind and in my experience as I grew in the world of Mormon studies, as I grew intellectually. My relationships with both were parallel. So while I was very much involved in the organization of Exponent 2 in the early 2000s and beyond. That was also the time when I was starting to find dialogue, and I was reading all these dialogue essays, which just completely opened my vision to what it meant, to what it could mean for me to be an LDS person. I saw so much nuance. I saw so much complexity. So many fantastic discussions. I actually lived in an area where Armand Moss, the famous Mormon sociologist, had retired. And so for almost 10 years, we met nearly every week with Armand and had a study group. And over again, we would read dialogue articles. We would discuss all the topics in Mormonism that just were not discussed at church. And so it was incredibly meaningful for me to have dialogue as a huge part of my life alongside Exponent 2 at the same time. So in terms of so for me, the relationship has, it's not been anything where it's been competitive. It's been seamless for me, and they've both meant so much to me.
Yeah, that echoes so much of my thinking as well. I think of Dialogue and Exponent 2 as sort of spiritual and intellectual sisters, born of the same sort of 1970s ferment, and both really pretty audacious. And I think where it's interesting because Exponent 2 owes part of its origin story to Dialogue, right? So it was the founders of Exponent 2 first doing the pink issue of Dialogue that sort of prompted them to say, well, as Claudia Bushman told Richard Bushman at the time, everything we're doing is turning to gold. And so after doing this Dialogue issue, they then felt the confidence or the drive to start Exponent 2. But, that's a well-known story. I think less told is the way that Exponent 2 has influenced Dialogue as well, where the women of Exponent 2, the feminists that emerged from that group, were able to confront some of the entrenched hierarchy and patriarchy that, was built into Dialogue's founding. So there's this ongoing conversation. I think there's shared identity. I think there's gratitude for both sides. And pretty exciting, I think, to make this long-standing partnership more explicit in this moment. So I'm hoping that Dialogue can be in conversation with Exponent 2 in an even more sort of overt way in the coming years.
I'll just say it's really exciting to sort of have this next chapter in the Dialogue Exponent 2 relationship being written by the two of you, and really excited to see what you both do.
Thanks, Taylor. So I've got a question for you. I would like to know looking back, you've been doing this for 6 years, which is a significant time for a dialogue editor. I think longer than is typical. What do you feel like were the most meaningful accomplishments or initiatives during your tenure?
Oh man, there are so many. It's hard to like narrow down. Not so many great accomplishments. There are so many things that I'm really like proud that I was a part of that, and so it's hard to kind of narrow it down to one thing. Some of them are things that like people probably don't notice or have really like or really care as much as I do. So like the redesign of the website and a lot of the new features that we added were things that I'm really proud of. And, it's all going to look out of date in 3 years and it's going to have to get redone. That's just how the nature of things, but it was a major project to undertake that. And I'm really proud of the things that we built as a team to kind of take the website into the next step, its next phase too. I think that a lot of the topics that we covered, and a lot of the articles that we produced out of these years are things that I think will stand the test of time. There are some really foundational pieces in Book of Mormon studies, in Joseph Smith history, in studies of race and gender sexuality, that I think will kind of be there for a long time. And but if there's one thing, if I had to narrow it down to one, so I got to answer with lots of them. But if there's one thing, I think that the topics pages that we developed are one of the things that I'm the most proud of. And part of it was because the new material that we produce at Dialogue is, of course, incredibly useful. And Dialogue has this nearly 60-year legacy of important articles that have literally shaped and changed the way that Latter-day Saints think about all kinds of issues, from race, from the Book of Abraham, the Book of Mormon. I mean, it's been the kind of place where so many of these ideas have germinated, and it's hard to find that stuff, And so I really wanted to build a system where people could go and find and easily research the topics that they were interested in, rather than kind of hunting like a needle with like a needle in a haystack for the things that you're looking for, to be able to say, okay, here's all of our stuff on this, and here's the history that it tells when you kind of line everything up. And that was a project that we employed some like BYU undergraduate interns to help us build, and we did all kinds of cool stuff to kind of make that happen. We turned it into a podcast series, and it was a lot of work and a lot of fun to review the history of scholarship on so many of these important topics. So that, for me, I think is one of the things that I look back on as things that was one of the things that was most enjoyable and one of the things I'm most proud of.
It's really huge. And I'll just say, both in my scholarship and in my devotional life, I've used those topic pages. It is, and what a huge effort, considering the decades of work that Dialogue has produced. But yeah, both when I've been doing research, it's come in handy, and when I've been writing lessons or talks from church, to just have that all come up under one topic. It's a huge resource.
Well, and both of you have great essays that are included in those series too. So thanks for your contributions to them as well.
Taylor, I wanted to just jump in and ask a quick question, and I loved your response and your reflections on the big accomplishments. Taking another tack. Could you comment on maybe some of the hardest things that you have encountered as editor of Dialogue? What have been the real challenges?
Well, it's always a challenge to, fit together all of the various pieces of, a dozen to as many sometimes as 24 different authors who are committing poetry or submitting poetry and fiction, and try to get them all together and get the page count right. Like, the technical challenges of the editing is definitely one of the problems. And then I would say it's both the good and the bad at the same time of the long delays, the slow grind that it takes to get an article reviewed, to get it edited, to get it copy edited, to get the proofs checked, and then to finally be published. There's the print journal is a little bit of an old fashioned form, and that long delay of actually seeing something published I think it has benefits because that allows things to marinate, right? And I think it is just one of the challenges I feel like where we can't be as up to date as I would like to, or people have to wait a long time for their great work to see the light of day. There are relevant conversations happening online and someone's got an article in the queue, but it's not out yet, So I think that's one of the things that is sometimes a little bit frustrating about the job.
Yeah, no, that is as the book review editor of Dialogue for the past year or so, I've received many emails from people who wrote book reviews wondering when it will be published and surprised it hasn't been published yet. So yeah, that long publication time has its benefits for sure, but also it can feel a little slow sometimes too.
I feel it's especially acute in the book review section too, because it takes so long to get a book reviewed, and then it takes so long for the book review to actually come out. Yeah. It's sometimes 2 years after a book has been out that we finally get to see the review, and that's just. It's just sort of how it is for right now. But that's, I think, one of the challenges of the job for sure. So,
yeah.
Well, let me ask you all a question again. And I'm a little bit curious about this. We get to think backwards in talking with me, but you all have got some time to kind of think forward about what are the kinds of things that you think are important coming forward in Mormon scholarship. So what are the kind of most urgent conversations, questions, topics that you think are happening right now that you would hope to see Dialogue be a place where those things are being discussed?
So I'll take a stab at that first. There are a few things that have been percolating in my mind for a while. I think you did a really amazing job, Taylor, with bringing in and focusing on issues that Dialogue had either not really addressed before or needed, a more in-depth study. I think your issue on indigeneity was super important, and I would like to, dive deeper into that, amplify Indigenous voices within and adjacent to Mormonism, and support scholarship that interrogates colonialism and white supremacy. I think the climate crisis and our theological responsibility about that. What does Mormonism have to say, really say in this moment of ecological collapse? And, can we push beyond ideas of individual stewardship and explore systemic critiques or theological cosmology? Or maybe bring in, eschatological frameworks. I think there's space there for greater rigorous reflection. And then I'm also very interested in the Mormon arts, what I think of as a real renaissance in the past few years, and a lot more attention and interest in Mormon art. I have said it a few times, but I really do believe that Mormon art at this point is where Mormon history was maybe 60 years ago, where it's just on the cusp of being a super important part of Mormon studies. And I think Dialogue is uniquely poised to serve as a platform for academic analysis of Mormon art. I think pushing for essays that explore artist theology, the connection between beauty and justice and faith, and how artists can serve as spiritual interpreters would all be super interesting to me.
Well, that's amazing, Margaret. I could not say any of that better, and I 100% agree that these are fantastic directions. The one tiny thing I'll expand on is I think there's so much that can still be done with global Mormonism. You touched on that, Margaret, with when you spoke about in indigeneity. But yeah, there's so many Mormon stories out there, so many unique Mormon cultures in the world that we don't know enough about, so many unique expressions of Mormonism, so much interesting agency among global members as they navigate both their chosen tradition and the culture, their local cultures, and how this all works together. I think there's a lot out there, and so I'm very excited to try to bring more of those articles and stories to the forefront, and even possibly maybe explore publishing in another language, as well as English for some articles, because I would love dialogue to reach not just the North American audience, but also into the world more generally.
I love these. I'm so excited to see what you all develop in these areas, and hopefully people out there who are interested in working on these topics will be motivated by your visions to produce some of that work too. So very exciting.
Taylor, so as you think about handing the reins over to us, do you have any particular hopes or advice to give to us? Any visions of what we can do to bring this forward?
Oh, that's a hard one. I mean, I have nothing but confidence in both of you to do something great. So I have no advice in any direct way along those lines, and the visions that you all have articulated for what dialogue is. You know dialogue well. You are going to be great stewards for it. So I think that's I have no again, yeah, I don't know. You're going to be great. You don't need me to tell you what to do. But I will say one thing. That I think that is I think that this is a hard part about a journal too, right? Is that our visions for what we want to do are sometimes limited by what people are actually producing. And, you're like, oh, wouldn't it be great? And everybody who's ever organized a conference or had a call for papers, like, wouldn't it be great if people are working on this and people aren't yet, And so one of the challenges is to be able to find ways of creating those conversations that you hope to see people having. And, we've tried to do that with various calls for papers in the past around special issues on the family, special issues on health and healing, to try and foster some of these conversations. And those have resulted in great work. But sometimes, like the one essay that you hope someone would write, no one has written it yet, And so we're kind of like trying to guide the field and also let the field come to you at the same time is, one of the balancing acts, I think, of the job.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, no, that's a great point. Well, Margaret and I are definitely going to have to figure out how to balance that out. But I appreciate that advice. Thank you.
So let me ask a question to both of you to kind of follow up a little bit that merges the questions of your backgrounds with also the vision of where you'd like dialogue to go. I think it's fair to say that the dialogue in Mormon studies in general has really been dominated by a set of historical questions, historical inquiry, historical methods. And both of you come out of studies in religious studies with training in a wide variety of methodologies. Margaret, you've co-written several volumes on the Book of Mormon and scriptural interpretation. Caroline, global Mormonism and ethnographic work and anthropological studies. And so how do you see your own backgrounds as kind of both a reflection of the changing shape of the field right now, as well as the ways that you hope to kind of influence the direction that the field goes?
Caroline, you want to start?
I'm waiting for you to start, Margaret.
Yeah, so I think, history is always going to be a cornerstone of Mormon studies. And, basic understanding of Mormon history is always going to be, really important. I'm excited for hopefully a broadening of academic, rigorous exploration of theology, cultural studies, which dialogue has always engaged in. But yeah, I am very interested in ethics. What are Mormon ethics? We can identify Christian ethics. How does Mormonism overlap or distinguish itself from that? I think that how we're using scripture is really opening up in exciting new ways in both inside the church and in academic forums. So yeah, what I'm hoping is this just lengthens the table, right? We're expanding, the room's getting bigger, more scholars can be engaged in dialogue. They don't, it doesn't feel like, well, if I don't have something to present on history, then I don't have much to say in this space. That having lots of diversity of different fields is going to just make dialogue more interesting, more exciting, more vibrant. So yeah, I think a lot of different areas, theology, art, cultural studies, all of these things are moving very quickly in Mormon studies from my perspective. And I'm just excited to see what comes at us.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's beautifully said. Yes, history's always going to have a really important place in Mormon studies for sure. But this is a place where I see dialogue having so much scope for impact, because we can go in any, almost any methodological direction, like you were mentioning, anthropology, ethnography, sociology, ethics, theology. And so I think that's what makes dialogue so exciting. We're not going to be bound by one discipline. We're not going to be bound by examining what has happened in the past. We can go expand outwards. We can expand into the future. And I think what Margaret said about the importance of theology and ethics, I think these are such important conversations that need to be had, and dialogue is the place to have them. So I'm really excited for that. Taylor, so this is I just want to say thank you so much for all that you have done for this journal. You have moved things forward in incredibly important ways. So maybe I'll just ask one last question to you about some of that. We've already mentioned the amazing work you've done on the website, the topics pages. We haven't talked so much about the podcasting and all that you have done in the world of audio, as well as, with the written page. So I was wondering, what do you see in terms of dialogue's role regarding, expanding outward into podcasting, into social media? How is this going to be an important part of dialogue's mission, both today and in the future?
Yeah, my vision when I came on to dialogue was to, see dialogue as a legacy product of a legacy media of a print journal that had made some transitions to being online. It was available online. And before I got here, they had made it freely available to everybody rather than behind a paywall, which was a big way of expanding access as well. But I was just noticing so many people were engaging with the big ideas in Mormon scholarship in audio form, in YouTube videos, in all these other kinds of new media that have sprung up on social media, as we mentioned, of course, as well. And I wanted to make sure that dialogue was able to like meet that moment and to make sure that the all of the great work that people have poured into the study of these big issues was going to be accessible and available on those other kinds of platforms as well. There's still so much work to be done. And if we had millions of dollars, we could do, even more on this front. But I think that it's really important that dialogue be present on these other media platforms as not only in honor of the legacy of dialogue, of all of the work that has been done, as I said, on these topics, but that dialogue has always been a forward thinking place, and that in order to do that, it needed to kind of transform itself and to think of itself a little bit differently. That the journal is one thing that we do, but it's one among several ways in which we engage the broader questions of Mormon studies and of Mormon life in the present moment. So I hope that there are even more new kinds of media ways of engaging people that will emerge over the years, and the dialogue will continue to be present on those. But I'm really proud of the great work that our team has done, and I'll mention Daniel Smith as one of our really visionaries who has made this happen, as well as so many of the other Dialogue Podcast Network members who saw the vision of engaging in a broad conversation among people across different platforms and across different media spaces. So yeah, I'm really excited about the work that we've done, and hopefully others will other new ways will emerge, and that you all will continue to adapt to the changing environment. So yeah, good luck.
We're excited. This is one thing that makes dialogue exciting, is that it's not only the wonderful journal, it's also these other forums to discuss really important topics in Mormon studies. So this is a great part of dialogue, and I'm excited to dive in.
Let me ask one final question to you both, too, which is, it will also tell us a little bit about both of your personalities, but how do you see yourselves working together? What are your strengths and weaknesses? We have had co-editors in the past in dialogue. It's not always the norm. When we have had them, it's been a husband and wife team, usually, not always, but usually. So how do you see the two of you working together, especially literally across the United States? You live in on the different coasts. What are the strengths and weaknesses? What are the things that you see as emerging out of this partnership between the two of you?
I can jump in with that. I knew that if I was going to do dialogue at all, I wanted it to be in collaboration with someone else. All of my favorite projects, all of my, the work that I've produced, my favorite work is done in collaboration with other people. And Kline is one of my favorite people, one of my favorite Mormon feminists. So when we started having this conversation about, should we apply for this position together, a huge part of what interested me was working with Kline. She is so brilliant and so well qualified for this work, and I was really excited about her global feminist perspective. Her book, Mormon Women at the Crossroads, was, I think, one of the best books I've read in Mormon studies in many years. She has all of this experience with interviewing Mormon women, and giving a platform for marginalized voices, all of which was really exciting to me. But I also know her personally. Actually, when I sent in my very first guest post to be on the Exponent 2 blog, it was Caroline who responded to me, and I had so much admiration for her from the very beginning. And I've watched her over the years. It's been about 20 years now, develop scholars, develop spaces for young people to thrive in this community, and to really care about the people and the spaces that were nurturing those people. And I'm excited to get to be in her presence more.
Oh my gosh, Margaret, that is so kind. It's so overly kind, but I appreciate that so much. Yes, I too, when contemplating applying to be the editor of Dialogue, I like Margaret, I only wanted to do this if it could be in collaboration. I wanted a partner. I wanted someone I could bounce ideas off of. I didn't want to be by myself with the computer all the time. Like, I wanted someone there to be with me, at least virtually, to discuss these issues with. And so Margaret just is the perfect collaborator, and she has this wonderful background and expertise in stuff that I don't have as much expertise in. She has these incredible connections to the art world and a wonderful ability to analyze art. And so this is something I do not bring at all. And she's going to be bringing this to Dialogue, which is just such a boon to Dialogue. I admire her so much she has this rock solid ethical core, like you're like just absolutely rock solid, unshakable ethics. And this is something I admire more than I can say. Margaret is not someone who's going to bend her values to take an easy path. Like, she will always stand up for them. And so this is something that is incredibly admirable. Her books on the Book of Mormon, for the least of these, just brilliant way to analyze scripture and bring in womanist theology perspectives and just all these wonderful new ways to think about the Book of Mormon. So I feel incredibly privileged to have her by my side as we venture on. And I also feel like she's going to be amazing when it comes to organization. Like, I will rely on you, Margaret. You will keep us on track. And I am so happy to have someone to help with that. I don't know if organization has ever been my forte. So I think we're going to complement each other well. I think we're going to work together well. And hopefully this is just going to be a great partnership. I expect it will be.
Thanks.
Well, Dialogue is in excellent hands, and I couldn't be more excited about the two of you. And I'm so proud of the work that you've done in the past, and really looking forward to what you'll do with Dialogue in the future. I now get to pass the mantle, like Elijah to Elisha, officially here. And I'll let you all do the outro to our podcast episode here. But let me ask one other final thing, which is to just point out that next year, 2026, is the 60th anniversary of Dialogue. You two will be the editors then. Do you want to just tell us a little bit about what is kind of in the plans for that? And then we'll go ahead and close up.
Yeah. So to me, one of the great strengths of Dialogue is its longevity, right? That it has been here. It has been a witness to Mormon events, Mormon scholarship for so many years. And my father-in-law has been a subscriber since the very first issue and has kept all of his issues. And when I sit down at his house and go through just volume after volume, it is extraordinary what Dialogue has collected and produced over the years. And I think at this moment of 60 years coming up, to me, it's particularly, Dialogue is only becoming more important in an era where disagreement is often mistaken for disloyalty. Dialogue's commitment to being a forum for the exchange of ideas is more radical than ever. And that doesn't just mean hosting polite debates. It means creating space for real intellectual risk and doing so with rigor and care, and really like a fundamental belief in the power of conversation, that it continues to be important to talk to one another. So I'm excited for this, this upcoming anniversary, both to celebrate what Dialogue has done and the, I think, growing importance of its role in our society.
That was beautifully said. I love everything about that. And absolutely, the legacy of Dialogue is incredibly important, and I'm excited for the 60th anniversary. We have not talked very much what an issue might look like commemorating the 60th anniversary, but I could see wonderful reflections of the importance of Dialogue in people's lives. I could see analyses of how conversations have changed over time through Dialogue's pages. I think that we could do some really interesting reflections on what Dialogue has meant to people and how things have evolved. And so I am excited to dive into that and just to keep Dialogue's amazing legacy alive and in the forefront of people's minds.
Thank you both so much. It's been so fun to chat with you. It's an honor to see you take on the next stage of this, and good luck to both of you.
Thank you so much.
To our listeners, thank you for joining us today. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends and colleagues, and don't forget to leave us a review or to get in touch with any comments or questions. We hope you'll tune in for future episodes of our podcast. Please subscribe and rate the show, and be sure to check out the whole range of shows in the Dialogue Podcast Network.
Greetings, my name is Rebecca DeSchweinitz, and I'm thrilled to serve as a board member at the Dialogue Foundation and as one of the hosts of Dialogue Gospel Study. In each episode, which we record live the second and fourth Sunday of every month, we welcome esteemed speakers from a variety of backgrounds to share their insights and perspectives on the Come Follow Me lessons. Our aim is to spark meaningful conversations about the scriptures, to connect them to our personal experiences and to our understandings and explorations of the gospel. To stay in the loop with our upcoming lessons and this opportunity to engage with Mormon thought, culture, and belief, be sure to visit dialoguejournal.com and sign up for our newsletter. By doing so, you'll receive updates and timely links to join our live stream lessons. Additionally, you can catch up on our past guests and episodes by subscribing to Dialogue Journal on YouTube, Facebook, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Dialogue Podcast Network.